ahead.
Yeah. Well, thank you to Community Energy Scotland for giving us the privilege of actually sharing this. And I'm sure, you know, as Mike said, I'll also share this with our wider, particularly our 230 members. You know, I can put that out. But just to give a bit of an overview, KPT Development Trust stands for Keir, Penpunt and Timron, which are 3 small villages in mid-Nithsdale that all abut next to each other. We've got some beautiful glens around us. So really conducive to walking and particularly cycling. It's a big area for cycling. We are a small group, as in the residents are only, I think it's 1,020 now. We've got a couple of new families that have moved into the area, and we've got 230 signed members of the KP Trust. Of those, 3/4 live in the area and about 25% live out with the area. So Thornhill is our biggest hub, which is our biggest sort of service area where there's shops, dentist and a medical centre. So going back to 2017, when it was sort of inaugurated, there was a huge community consultation done with professionals, and 2/3 of the entire community did respond, which was a pretty good uptake. And out of that, there were 6 key pillars and 6 key areas which the community had sort of voiced that we needed some attention to. And connecting our communities was a big one. So, you know, safe paths, particularly from Penpunt to Thornhill, because it's quite an intrepid road, and also cycling to push cycling in the area. And I should mention Kirkpatrick Macmillan, which was the founder of today's modern bike back in the late 18th century. He was born in Keir, which is one of our villages. So the smithy where he's brought up and his little workshop, which you can still see through the windows, and he was also buried there. So we have a great connection to cycling, and I call it a bit of a mecca, because particularly in the summer, we get cyclists coming from all over. COP26, with a group of guys cycled from London up to COP26 and popped into our cafe. And of course, part of that motivation to do a wee side trip was to come and see Kirkpatrick Macmillan. So I've rambled on a bit, but I've just realised I think it's important to share the history of cycling in our area, and the fact I don't think we actually promote it enough. But I'll just pause that for a minute, because we've got the UCIs coming up and the World Championships, so we can talk about that a bit later. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Wonderful. I've got. Yeah. So, as part of my role, and I'm very passionate about this, I think it's all very well to do great work, but I think we need to share it. And partnerships, we've got to have strong partnerships, because we can't do this on our own, particularly because I'm a part-time development officer and everyone else is volunteers. So I have to give massive credit to the volunteers who have really, in the face of everything we've managed to achieve, and most of these projects throughout nearly 2 years of COVID has been, I think, quite astounding. So marketing and PR, I think, are quite integral to what any development trust or community does. But it's just not sharing knowledge, it's sharing assets, but it also gains support. And it's how you find volunteers as well when you do good work like that. So I think we can never underestimate, you know, really getting the word out there about the projects we do. And it can also attract funding and sponsorships, because people will see that and go, wow, that's fantastic. How can we work in with you to sort of build capacity? Yeah, so social media. And having Rosie here honestly has been fantastic. She's been a great motivation for me, truly, because we're quite like-minded in our thinking. And, you know, whenever I can, whatever Community Energy Scotland does, and you'll see this on my members page here, I've done a quick snapshot. Any of the workshops Rosie does, you'll see there's one where there's a screenshot. In fact, Mike, we can see your head on the screenshot. Oh dear. So yeah, it's always good to share that. And people are genuinely interested in the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. They don't realise the work that goes on just to make this happen, because it certainly doesn't happen overnight. So yeah, I would say to anyone out there, you know, don't be shy about sharing your work and what you do, because it all leads to good practice. And quite honestly, you know, I've gone to other development trusts in the area just to glean what they do, because, you know, if someone's done it successfully, well, there's no point in reinventing the wheel. Pardon the pun. Anyway, next slide, please.
I don't know why it's going so slowly.
I know, maybe I set it at that, I'm not sure. I could probably fix that. So with Cycling Scotland, brilliant partnership with them, which we sort of adopted 2.5 years ago. there was a Cycling Friendly Communities Partnership Fund. So we thought, right, to sort of kickstart all our cycling friendly activities, we got enough money to buy some maintenance stations. So that yellow pillar you see is a very high-tech maintenance station, Turvek. They're made in Poland, distributed through a London distributor. Great piece of kit. You know, some of the serious hardcore cyclists have said they've never seen anything like it. So all the tools are there inside. And there's also, you know, obviously a compressor where you can pump up your tires. So that's been a great piece of kit, one for each village. We did walking and trail maps, A3, which I'll show you in the next slide, just to show all our core paths and some of our places of interest where people can walk and cycle, you know, whether it's historical or otherwise. We got some money from bike maintenance training, which was delivered by Cycling Scotland, because we've got two Cycling Scotland leaders here, one in Josh Wood up in A Forest, which is another big mountain biking area just up behind us, and a safe cycling training, which was done with families, and that was done at the school. And then promotion of lead bike rides. So Community Cycling Scotland, you can get an accreditation as a bike leader. So you're able to take people out safely and take them on cycle-led rides. So once again, we're very fortunate. We've got probably 4 of them in the area now, and they can help with some of our bike leads. So the one down in the right-hand corner was this year, and we had about 60, and we put them out in waves, and that was part of the cycling weekend. That was lots of fun. So that was one of our lead bike rides, which went past Kirkpatrick Macmillan's house. So yeah, lots of fun. Please feel free to ask any questions. I know there's just you, Mike, but I don't want to kind of just ramble on.
No, it's interesting. I'm taking notes.
Great. Okay, next one.
You can just press that if you
Can I?
want to do it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so the interpretation boards, they were designed by a cartographer because we had to update all the core paths we were aware of on the map. And then we did places of interest. And of course, the main one was Kirkpatrick Macmillan. There's his Smiddy, the little white house there. There's his grave. There's a guy called Andy Goldsworthy who, you know, if you're into outdoor sculptures and sort of installations, he is sort of a world known for that. And he lives in Penpunt. So the Millennium Egg was one that he built. And that, as you drive from Thornhill to Penpunt, you'll see that sitting up on the hill. And then we've got a QR code as well that gives more information about all those key places of interest. So there's one of those in each village. And I think it's been great in the summer because we've put it outside the cafe. So there's a kind of central hub there where we've got the bike racks, we've got the bike maintenance station. And then, you know, logically people can go there and go, right, where will we go for a bike ride today? And sometimes they just take a photo of the map so they can reference it when they're out and about on their bikes. Okay, so that's interpretation boards.
Senga, if you scan the QR code, does that give you all the information to take around in your phone? It's a matter of interest.
Yes.
Okay, right, thanks.
Great. So this was a lovely award that came through in March last year. And it wasn't a surprise because we didn't just attain it. You actually have to go online with Cycling Scotland and evidence everything you've done. And then, you know, you sort of get points for everything you've done to promote cycling in the area. And we came out as a silver. So we jumped straight from bronze to silver. So delighted about that. And I'm kind of hoping this summer we might elevate it up a notch, particularly now we've got our e-bike scheme up and running, that we can attain gold status. So if you're a community and you've got enough cycling activity, I'd encourage you to do that because it's just a great acknowledgement and a sort of endorsement to say that, you know, you are cycling friendly. And hey, it's a marketing tool as well, to be honest, just to say that we've got this. Sorry for the pause. Okay, so celebration of cycling. Back in, well, late 2020, there was some funding going for cycling events. And you can imagine that was just sort of before COVID kicked off. But we got money from D&G events, and that was £2,000. And it was specifically, I applied to do this cycling event. And the Cycling Scotland, Pedal for Scotland Fund, I got 750. So not a lot of money, but I built a whole weekend of activities, which I really wanted to be inclusive, whether you're 3 years old or you're, 80 years old. And the main expensive attraction is Muckmeddon Pump Track. So spoke to a few people up in Fife and up north who'd done weekend celebrations, and they said, look, if you get a pump track, people will come. Kids love it. So you can see in the middle picture there, basically it's an obstacle course. And there was one for adults and there's one for kids. So there's rollers and there's humps and all sorts. So the first year, 2021, we had a huge turnout because we'd just come out of our first wave of COVID. It was a brilliant sunny weekend. And I think, it just, everything was just sort of conspiring to work because people were out and about. We had, so the pump track we had for one day, it was about £1,000, but they had 3 instructors. The instructors were teaching kids, how to do jumps, how to maneuver. So I could thoroughly recommend those guys. They're really good fun to work with. The locals built an obstacle race in the Mugga. So with 3 volunteer dads there, and that was fantastic. And we had races happening all day, and we sort of, timed the kids. So that was the other one. Then Sustrans, Bryony Kincaid, who works for Sustrans here locally, who goes around the schools and does doctor bike and all those little courses. She came and did little skill sessions with the kids. And then we'd just taken 2 of our e-bikes, and we had those out for people to try. And then we had a woodland circuit on the Sunday, which was a bit more hardcore. So it was off-road, it was mountain bikers, a junior age group races. So all in all, I have to say it was a fantastic weekend. It was a really feel-good weekend. We had the biosphere there as well. We had a few exhibitors there. And we had a marquee, obviously, as the sort of headquarters for the weekend. Oh, and the first year we had the Kirkpatrick Millen antique replica bike, which is without a doubt the best one there is. And it's up at Buccleuch in the Drumlanrig Castle. So they very kindly loaned that to us. So that was a really, it was lovely for people to see that, because it's been locked away for a couple of years since they closed the bike museum that used to be up at Drumlanrig. Okay, so that was the celebration cycling weekend, which I have to say we are planning to do it this year. I've put in again for 2000 with D&G events, and Cycling Scotland haven't released their funding yet because it comes in the next financial year. So they just said, look, watch this space. As soon as we know the funding's been ring fenced for cycling events, we'll let you know. So hoping to get some money there. Okay, right, the community e-bike scheme. Oh, that's going back to late 2021. Yeah, sorry, it's in the slide. November 2021. 3 funding streams collaborated to start an e-bike scheme. So Cycling Scotland provided all the ancillary equipment, like, I'm lying. They did. Sorry, I have to get this right. Yeah, they provided all the ancillary equipment, which the helmets, the high-vis, and the bike locks. EST, the Energy Saving Trust, actually provided the money for the bikes, which was amazing. So originally we went for 8 e-bikes, and then doing a bit more just local talking to people, and a bit of sort of, just anecdotal. People said you really should get a cargo bike because they're invaluable. You could put kids in them, you could go shopping in them. So EST said, absolutely, even the funding's going through, swap 2 e-bikes for a cargo bike, because it just was about 2,200 for the Whisper e-bikes, and a cargo bike's just over 4,000. So they're a pretty expensive piece of kit.
Yeah.
So that all got approved, and then the 3rd stream, once that's been approved, the lottery, Together Our Planet, would provide the funding for the first year for a caretaker, for someone like me to do all the marketing, promotion, publicity, which is probably about £100, but that was okay. And the most expensive piece of kit really was the Asgard shed, because it had to be police approved, because there's a lot of expensive kit in there. And speaking to other e-bike schemes like New Galloway and Auchenkean, they said those are the only sheds really that the police and insurance will approve, because they're absolutely indestructible. So the next challenge was finding a site that had to be pretty central, and the council had nothing around the village that we could put the bike on, the shed on, sorry. But right in the middle of Pen Punt, there's a large building, which is an IT company, and it's the only sort of commercial company in Pen Punt. And they had a spare garden out the back, absolutely ideal. And they said, this is great, it's great for the community. So it's just tucked away behind there. And then we've got a fabulous dad in Christian, a caretaker who, you know, and I will say he gets paid an absolute pittance, but he's an ex-cyclist, loves it. He's got 5 kids of his own, and he's been amazing. You know, he literally, even though I'll say he's on call 24/7, you know, if someone does call up and say, look, I'd like a bike tomorrow morning, he's generally there for them. So the money for the Together Our Planet gives a year's basic funding just to cover those. But I can assure you, if someone was looking for a proper, you know, how would I put this, a salary to get paid to do that, then it didn't cover that. It was just really, it was a hobby sort of payment, to be honest. But fantastic. The whole thing got up and running late July, early August last year. And the big launch was really our celebration of cycling. And without a doubt, the most sought after and attractive ride was the cargo bike. So we had a gentleman with 2 of his dogs in it, who have subsequently, he's rented it a couple of times to take his 2 old dogs for a run in the cargo bike. We've had people get their bikes serviced up at Drumlanrig, because there's a bike shop up there. They'll take the cargo bike, go and pick up their bike and put it in the front to get it back to Pen Punt or Keir. So it's got multifunctional use. And of course, we kiddies, there's 2 seats with little straps where you can put 2 kids, probably up to age 5, 6. Christian reckoned anybody under sort of 40 kilograms, 2 kids could sit comfortably in there. So that is the e-bike scheme.
Are you going to talk about its viability, Senga, or can I ask those questions later on?
You can ask these questions now, because I think it's probably while it's fresh, we can chat about it.
Okay. Obviously, you're in your first year of launching it. Have you been able to look at the higher levels that you're getting to see whether you can project how you will maintain it for the, you know, in the next few years?
Very interesting question. And Rosie was there on Monday. Glen Kens and New Galloway, the Catstrand, their e-bike scheme came over to pick our brains about sustainability and costs and hire, you know, the hire structure. Now, we're not-for-profit charity, but at the end of the day, to make this sustainable, there will always be the maintenance costs, which are fairly expensive because e-bikes are a lot more technical, and having a caretaker to run it.
Yeah.
So we had a 2-tier, and it was £30 for anyone outside the area and £10 for anybody in the KPT area. We've been doing a special now, and I know it's the middle of winter, but anybody for £10. And then over the school holidays, we actually did it for £7. And we had 2 families take up the offer. So the pickup and the interest has been pretty slow, but, you know, we're going to say, look, it's winter, it's not been great weather, and we missed the tourism season. So what I was saying to them was, I went around all the accommodation places, Airbnbs, you know, farm stays, our commercial hotels, with a flyer to say, look, could you just make sure that your guests get this in front of your guests, because it's a great thing for them to do, because we've got so many beautiful glens to go up and down, and it's great cycling. So I said, look, to make it sustainable, and Glen Kens only give it to people in the Glen Kens area, residents. And I just said, to make this sustainable, it's got to be a bit more commercial. I would suggest you do go out. And they said, you're absolutely right. You know, we need to be sharing it with all the people that come to our area, because they've got a high tourism spike in the summer too. And they've got the big gravel raid road. So if you know anything about gravel riding, it's one of the best gravel rides in Scotland. So it was a no-brainer. So I think, Rosie, did they say they were going to get a couple of mountain gravel bikes?
They were definitely considering it.
They were considering that, yeah. Because I said, you'd be missing a trick being so close to the gravel raid and not having those bikes that people can take them on.
So do you see it as more leisure orientated at the moment, whilst the community get their head round how they can use bikes for commuting or for work and things like that. I wonder where the opportunity arises to get mums and dads out of cars to go to school, for example. Clearly, there's a distance and there's a weather issue to that, but it's also a mental challenge. If they can save money, I guess, long term, or if it's prohibitive in terms of using your car, then there's an opportunity there that may not be this year, but it may be in the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, very poignant question, Mike, because connecting our communities and paths. And that's a nice segue into the next section, which is all about the path we have been working on for 3 years to get built. I firmly believe, and it was joined up thinking, if we have e-bikes and people can rent them for next to nothing, it's even cheaper by the week, they can commute into Thornhill for their medical appointments, kids can get to school safely, which every senior child that goes to secondary school has to get to Thornhill. And, as you know, it's not just, this is hopefully the start. We've got to link Clothesbound, we've got to link Karen Bridge. And it's like a wheel and spoke mechanism. We've got the hub, but we've got to start getting those spokes linked as well. Right, so that. I won't go into a great deal of that, but I thought it's interesting because I did say to Kath, I'm happy to share this. Anyone wants this PowerPoint, but it gives them an idea of some of the pitfalls with us, with the rental system. After I spoke to most of the e-bike schemes I know, community e-bike schemes, they go, you know what, people want to phone you, they want to email you because they want to know, have you got this, have you got that? We've got a kid 5, we've got a kid 14. It's not just as simple as, let's just turn up and rent a bike. So people generally book direct. So the whole rental system online kind of was flawed from the start, but that's fine. It didn't work for us, but I'm just saying anecdotally, most of the e-bike schemes run in villages work on booking direct.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that is interesting.
Yeah. They want to talk to someone.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going over time. Right, so as I said to Mike, that was a very nice segue into our biggest project, which is an active travel path. Obviously, Sustrans build these all over Scotland, but to a very high standard. So this started 3 years ago, just before I even started with KPT. And it definitely came out of the original consultation. This was a big red light that, we need to get our kids safely to Thornhill. We need to be able to get safely to Thornhill. And we're not being very eco that we're jumping in a car to drive 2 miles, which is probably the most evidently the stats are that the biggest offenders are small commutes, and that in itself, whether you're starting a car for 50 miles or 2 miles, it's still emissions. Yep. So partnering with Sustrans, who again, I can only just absolutely praise. They've been amazing, just holding our hand all the way and just guiding us as to, how to access the funding, what evidence we need, etc. They provided 70% of the funding. So the paths are in 3 sections, which I'll show you later. And we had to secure the other 30%, which came from Swest Trans, and the main bulk of it came from SOSI, South of Scotland Enterprise, who at the very end came in with the last 230,000 to finish it. So thank you. That was amazing, because they'd seen, and we did have to demonstrate that we exhausted every other funding opportunity before we went to SOSI. So they came good. TP&E, who are very familiar with these paths, are the engineers based up in Glasgow as well, and they were our design consultants. And it was a very long process through, community consultation, and just working with landowners. So, it's I'll just caveat that by saying, we've got 3 different landowners. Buccleuch were particularly very generous. Buccleuch Estates, who owned about 2/3 of they did a sort of peppercorn payment. So that's helped tremendously. So we are at long last about to turn the turf with GH Engineering, who come down next week. We've started, if you see the bottom right-hand corner, we've actually done the fencing for 1/3 of the path. And that was a local fencing contractor. So We've got fencing that the path's going to be about it's 5 meters fence to fence. So it's a very safe path. And then Sustrans, again, very generous. We've got a lovely girl in Jenny, who is our path finance project manager, because it does, you know, it's pretty technical, and now it's all about accountability and finance and keeping the project on track. So Jenny's been charged and trusted with that, and she's doing a great job. So it's all systems go as of next week when FH come down and start setting up their compound with all their heavy equipment. So this is obviously not great because, you know, it's not close in, but, you know, if anybody particularly wants to see these in the first edition, as in, you know, much sharper, then I can provide those. So at Pen Punt, and there's another slide that shows this. So it goes round behind the school, goes round a field, and then just at the exit of Pen Punt, the actual village, it crosses the road, and that's when it starts on farmland. And it basically follows the left-hand side of that E72, the actual road, right through to the Nith Bridge. So that's nearly 2 miles. So it's not a particularly long path. There's a couple of dog legs where we have to go around a field, one of the clue fields at Tibbers Farm, and then through a woodland. So I'll show you that in the next slide. There we go. So that's phase 1A. So if you can see the dog leg, I wish I had a pointer, but that green dog leg at the left, the start of the path goes round the glebe field, and then it crosses over, and it's going to be a very safe crossing. It has to cross over that to go to the left-hand side. Now, with any Sustrans path, it's access for all. So the elevation can only be, I think it's like 10%. So there are a few areas where we've had to do ramps to reduce, so we can't follow the normal contour of the land. Does that make sense? So we've had to do ramps to flatten out, so elevated ramps. And there's one at Step Ends at the farm there. And then if we just go to the last slide, actually that's going along the road to Burnhead. So there's a little dwelling just halfway to Thornhill, and then we actually go behind Burnhead village. So there's section 1A and there's section 1, 2, and 3. So this is page 3. So at ramp C, we've left Burnhead and we're going round a field. And then as we go around that field and come back down the other side, that's going through, it says ramp down through the woods. So there's a wooded Buccleuch section there, which is pretty steep. So that's pretty technical, because what we've had to do is zigzag ramps so that the elevation is pretty flat, you know, so even a wheelchair can go on that. And then it comes down and joins the road, then it joins the final field to go to the Drumlanrig Bridge. So that's pretty much it. I think I've just made it under 25 minutes. I hope that's okay, Kath. So thank you. I hope I haven't rambled on too much.
Not at all.
Thank you for Community Energy Scotland. It's been a delight, and is a delight to work with you. And yeah, thank you so much. So questions, I'm sure we've only got Mike online, but you know, if anyone wants to contact me through yourself, Kath, or through Rose, I'm sure there's some gaps there and some information and knowledge sharing that I've maybe missed. So very happy to take those, you know, either by email. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanger. That was really good. Mike, do you have any other questions?
I guess I was going to ask about maintenance again, sustainability in that respect. Clearly, you've got funding to put the construction of the path in. Thereafter, is it the responsibility of the trust to look after the path in terms of, I mean, farmers are obviously going to go in and out across the path into fields, and potentially livestock's going to go that way, and that inevitably means mud. And so I guess you'll try and persuade the farmers to keep it as clean as they wish, but leaves and all sorts of things are going to build up on it over time, I suppose.
Yeah. And Mike, that was all part of the legal, you know, agreements. You know, it's very technical, you know, where we put gates, you know, how the gates work, as you say, you know, because we effectively own that piece of path on their land, we have to maintain it. We haven't got a maintenance team in place yet, but there is, yeah, that's a very good question. But we're just looking at the sort of parameters and what is required to maintain that path. Obviously, the path itself is very robust. It's a very technical path. It's, you know, as Fran said, we build them to last 50 years. So the composite itself is very hardy. But in terms of, you know, there's hedges either side, sight lines, you know, all that to consider. So yes, that is very much part of the next phase. And we're designing some lovely benches because, you know, there's some great viewpoints along that path. So it's also for people to walk and enjoy the views. So there'll be some really nicely designed benches made of stone and wood being installed as well. But yeah, that's a really good question about maintenance, because that, you know, that is one of our sort of areas we still have to address and how we're going to do that.
Are you worried about people not taking the dog leg around Burnhead and cheating by going down the main road?
Yes, we are. Yeah, funny you should say that. And then no, but I think what's even more interesting is once we cross over at Drumlanrig Bridge, and there will be traffic lights, which, God, I can't believe we haven't had traffic lights on that bridge, you know, because it's a bottleneck. And I go every day, and you know, there's always this, and not shaming tractors and lorries, but they refuse once they're on that bridge to reverse. So there will be traffic lights. So it'll be pedestrians and bikes, and then it'll be motorists. So that's great. Once you get to the other side, Mike, it is a dog leg round to the left, because Boatbrae is far too steep, and they couldn't. There's no way, even through the woods. But I would imagine people are not going to take, particularly, they might not take that dog leg once we build that last part of the path. And that's their prerogative if they just want to zoom up that steep incline. But yes.
But that's paved anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Sorry, did you have another question?
No. At some stage in the future, I'd be really interested to talk to people about joined upness, because there are issues with cycling, obviously to get to school on time, but maybe to get the bus in Thornhill that goes to Edinburgh. And I wonder, that's an issue that, you know, we need to perhaps address so that people do cycle the first bit, and maybe there's a secure bike shed in Thornhill for you to leave your bike in whilst you go shopping in Dumfries.
Absolutely, Mike. You're on the same page as me. I've been thinking that, you know, if
I can see depots all around the place, because people don't use the bus, partly because it isn't there. You get in your car and you keep going. But we need to try and address that side of it. And I'd be interested, and maybe people watching this video have sorted that out in their local area, and we'd be very interested to know how you do that. Because clearly you're one side of the Nith, we're the other. We'd love to be able to come and cycle to visit you, and the joined upness of it all makes total sense. Ben Punt and Closeburn School have the same headmistress or head teacher. There's scope there to interact between the two, especially in the nicer weather, the kids cycling from one to the other in a safe way. All of that would be brilliant. But I throw it out as an issue maybe for further discussion in the future.
Can I just wrap that up? Sorry, I was going to say, can I just wrap that up by saying, Mike, we're all about instigating behavioural change. This is all about, you know, changing people's behaviours, but we've got to give them the tools and the means to do it. And I think as a development trust, that's where we're at. That, you know, it's the path, it's having a bike shed in Thornhill. It's been able to link all that up. So yeah, I'm absolutely on the same page as you with that. So hopefully we'll be able to, in the future, take that forward as a collaborative group of villages. Yeah,
absolutely. And certainly my garage is in Kia. If I could cycle home from it on one of your bikes and then come back and get my car, I'm sure they'd be delighted, because they wouldn't have to deliver anything. Good
point.
It would save me finding another driver to take me across. So yes, seems to me there are wonderful opportunities here, weather aside, that we should be thinking about. But yes, behavioural change probably means the primary school kids have got to be on board maybe
definitely.
parents are a
It
lost
starts
cause.
with the
I don't know.
children. Yeah, behavioral change starts with the youngest generation. Absolutely.
Persuading
Yeah.
your mum and dad.
Exactly, because they do a very good job of that. Once the wee ones are convinced, they're very good
So,
at convincing the rest of the family. Yeah.
Can I say
Yeah.
that's very interesting, Sanga. Although I should have known a lot of that, I didn't.
Oh,
So
right.
it's quite interesting, all of that you're doing, and certainly
Worthwhile time this morning,
which
then,
is
Mike.
brilliant.
Sanger, can I ask a question, please? Has the local health authority or the local GP's practice or anybody connected to the medical profession locally been in touch about social prescribing in relation to the active travel plans that you've got up and running?
In a short word, no, we haven't really connected at all. We do have a small medical practice in Thornhill, but that begs the question that perhaps we should be working with them.
It wouldn't hurt to at least have an initial discussion. It may be that they don't do that sort of prescribing from that surgery at this current time. But it may be that they don't realise that actually there's a way to be able to encourage people as part of their prescribing for certain, as the doctor sees fit, obviously. And they may not realise actually there are facilities nearby that enable them to do that for certain patients. So it could be another avenue to explore. If you've got a contact in the surgery, have a
Yes,
chat
I do.
with her or him. Excellent.
Yes, I do have a contact, a doctor there. But you've just pricked my conscience. I really should be putting a poster up in the surgery. There is a notice board to let them know there's e-bikes. Thank
Good
you.
idea.
Yep.
Yeah, good idea.
You've given me an idea. Thank you.
And that brings us back to this whole, connecting with each other, speaking, sharing knowledge, having the chance to have these sort of conversations, because this is where ideas get not only shared, but sparked as well.